So there's a lot happening in the news. Justin Trudeau made a public statement on the Ukraine aircraft that came down in Iran. Up to 60 Canadian nationals on board, although I understand they have joint nationality. And Iran may be, I don't know about this, maybe someone could clarify this, but Iran may be a country that there's a number of countries in the world that only recognize one nationality. So if someone's an Iranian, they don't regard them as having dual nationality. There's a Ukrainian crew, and there's a number of other nationalities involved. Um, so that's a big thing, with all likelihood pointing to a ground missile hitting this plane. A lot of pertinent questions being asked. For example, why was the flight given permission for takeoff in essentially a war zone? In the sense that the missiles were being fired that night. So whether it was the Iranian military just feeling to give the airport a heads up, I don't know. A lot of questions around that. The Australian bushfires is another big issue. And also, I mean, there's echoes of MH17, just going back to the previous thing. In Brexit, a French friend of mine today sent me a link saying that the Erasmus program, was a program for EU students studying in the UK. MPs have voted against continuing that. That's very sad from a personal point of view, because it's how I met my continental friends. And, I hope it doesn't make things harder for French or Dutch or Czech students coming to the UK. Anyway, what I want to talk about is today's other story, which in some ways seems trivial compared to the other things, but it may not be in terms of constitutional issues, and that is, of course, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. We don't say Princess Meghan, and technically Prince Harry is a misnomer at the moment. He's technically the Duke of Sussex. She's the Duchess of Sussex. Whether today's announcement is going to have any impact on the royal title, I don't know. But basically, they've decided they're going to step back from frontline royal duties, be independently financed, and pursue a more independent, less high profile role. Apparently, a lot of this might be tabloid gossip, but apparently it's provoked indignation from Prince Charles and Prince William. So I don't think anyone can escape the fact there is rifts in the royal family. Now, this matters because obviously we are a constitutional monarchy. That's our political system. Um, this has been a very rough year for the Windsor dynasty in general. I mean, I'm talking about the last calendar year, starting with the crash of Prince Philip, um, all the issues that the Duke and Duchess of Sussex had with the media back and forth, and then the fallout from Prince Andrew and the Epstein claims. So it's sort of been another annus horribilis, as the Queen described 1992. Um, and she's 93 years old. She's not going to be around forever. So it does raise the question, are we going to see a very different makeup of the royal family, maybe scaled down significantly, maybe less profile? I don't think that when the Queen passes away, we're suddenly going to see a republic. I don't think that's going to happen. But all these things do raise questions. Now, regarding the Sussexes, I have kind of mixed feelings about it, because on one hand, I do not like the tabloid press, and I do think that from some quarters, the way that Meghan Markle has been treated, particularly from other women, has been at times vitriolic. And I think there's a range of reasons for this, but in my view, it's excessive at times. There's excessive vitriol towards her. Um, on the other hand, what the tabloids would argue is they can't have it both ways. When the royal wedding happened in 2018, there was huge pomp and circumstance around that, probably as much as his brother experienced 7 years previously. And, the tabloids were very welcoming of Meghan Markle, and as was the country for the most part. It was seen as a big event. It was very positive, and it had the same sort of vibes as the 2011 wedding. Then the tabloids started reporting on, frankly, royal hypocrisy. So, for example, the Duke and Duchess have made a big thing about the green credentials. This kind of ties into the sort of hypocrisy that's sometimes leveled at Hollywood. I know Ricky Gervais has just been applauded by Piers Morgan again um, for his take on the Golden Globes. I haven't seen that yet, so I can't comment in detail. But I think I would grudgingly have to agree that the tabloids are right about this. I mean, the Duke and Duchess like it when the attention's positive, and when the tabloids are promoting their wedding and their charitable engagements. But then when they focus on the fact, for example, that they would take a private jet despite promoting green issues and pointing out that is by definition pretty hypocritical, they don't like it and they say it's press intrusion. I remember seeing footage of Prince Harry in Zimbabwe, I think it was, or Botswana, probably wasn't Zimbabwe, kind of getting quite angry with the press. Now, Prince Harry's always had a rocky relationship with the media, and this is understandable from a human point of view. His mother died when he was young, and she was, of course, infamously hounded by the paparazzi. I think the paparazzi are slime. I mean, when the BBC were talking about this earlier, they were interviewing a guy from TMZ, as our American friends would say, as if he deserves respect, as if he's a respectable journalist. TMZ is trash. It's absolute trash. It is the epitome of everything that's wrong with the paparazzi. Um, but, the Sussexes do have a very comfortable life. And Meghan Markle wasn't exactly thrown into the deep end. She was already a public figure. She was an actress of some renown. She was a celebrity before she married Prince Harry. So I'm not sure people can sort of put it down to a poor young woman in the headlights. She's a lot older than Diana was, and she was already famous. So, I think there is a valid argument to say, well, they can't take all the privileges that come with being senior members of the royal family, um, and then complain about the attention. I do think there should be obvious human barriers to where the press intrudes. So paparazzi behavior is downright aggressive. I don't think there's any valid justification for what they do. But the tabloids less so. I mean, when they're covering royal stories of royal hypocrisy, as much as I don't like them, I can't say that they're not valid in that. Because the Sussexes do come across as hypocritical when they're pontificating on these things and virtue signaling on these things and basically getting into politics. Um, because this definitely crosses over into the political realm. If they're going to do that, they can't then complain that the press won't be slavishly on side. I mean, we don't live in an absolute monarchy. They're not above criticism. And that's what they need to understand. So, with all due respect to the Duke and Duchess, they can't just shout press intrusion every time they read a report they don't like. They're not above criticism. No member of the royal family should be. Even the Queen, at the height of the whole Diana thing, was criticised by the press for the way she responded to that. So, although it's extremely rare, even the Queen isn't above critique. But the Queen happens to be, in my opinion, a very strong constitutional monarch in the sense that her personal conduct, she's never had a scandal of significant proportion. So her personal conduct has been upstanding. The reason there hasn't been dirt on the Queen is because there is no dirt to be had. Um, but with the Sussexes, this is going to raise questions. I mean, it makes no sense that they would go to Los Angeles. If they're trying to get away from the media, Los Angeles is the last city on earth that you would go to because it's the city with the most relaxed rules on the paparazzi. They're everywhere there. I think only a few of the European capitals, perhaps Rome and Paris, can compete with LA for that level of intrusion. I mean, LA is paparazzi central. Toronto, where she spent a long time, is probably more plausible. So will it be like the situation when the Duke and Duchess of Windsor, the former King Edward VIII and Wallis Simpson went into kind of exile? One can imagine the tensions in the royal family, and I can understand the Queen and Prince Charles and Prince William being aggrieved at them not sort of letting them know in advance. what they were going to do, knowing the fallout there would be, knowing the attention this would get, because it makes it look like there's a big rift in the family, and maybe there is. And this is part of the problem, being probably the world's most famous family. It's all in the public spotlight. So if I think if they had a went to the Queen, Charles, and William first, they probably would have tried to talk them out of it, but at least they would have known. I think the fact that they kind of ostensibly went behind their back looks a bit reckless or disrespectful even to the monarch. So I'm a moderate royalist. I cannot see Britain being a republic. But things like this will no doubt galvanise the Republican argument because they will say, surely this just proves that as an institution, it's not fit for purpose. I disagree with that, but because I don't think the British royal family is like royal families in other parts of the world. I think it is deeply, deeply entrenched in our culture. And I personally think that would be quite a transition. I mean, what would we be, the Republic of Britain? If Scotland breaks away, are we going to end up as the Republic of England? Would it really come down to that? 10, 20 years from now? That to me is a profoundly depressing thought because it would be just so much less than what we were. But this is going to raise a lot of questions. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I don't consider myself really into royal gossip. I find it a bit sensationalistic and tabloid-esque. But there are real constitutional questions around this because although Prince Harry has been put kind of by circumstance, he's went lower down the line of succession. You know, not so long ago he was third, he's now sixth. It's because he is such a high-profile member of the royal family. Will the press kind of accept this? And then there's questions: how will they fund themselves? If, as I understand it, he has money from what his mother left over and from from the public purse, which goes into his royal. I may be wrong about this, but into his charitable causes. But that will, of course, need to be accounted for. So there's a lot of questions. Could they end up getting some sort of business role? Will they get Secret Service protection if they're in the United States? Apparently, as foreign dignitaries, they won't get full Secret Service protection. They can get State Department protection. So there's a lot of questions. It's quite a sad state of affairs because, just from a human perspective, so much for the Fab Four. It's kind of like some people might say Meghan Markle is Yoko Ono to the Beatles. I don't know. It's a bit sad because sounds like there's been a big family fallout, but it's one of these curious things. Every British newspaper was leading on this, and I don't think you'd get that anywhere else in the world. Um, should it be that way? I'm not sure. I would say there's more important things going on in the world. If this does lead to a constitutional situation that marks the beginning of the end of British monarchy, then it does become a much more profound issue than, an internal family squabbles. I hope if they do move on, they can find peace and happiness, but they also need to, accept that if they're making this decision, then they'll need to lose some of the privileges that they have because they do have very privileged lives. They do a lot for charity, but they've got very privileged lives, and they'll need to give and take. If they want to leave the roles that they have in order to have less media attention, then they'll have to accept the sacrifices that come with that as well. Proportionally speaking, not sacrifices the way a migrant sacrifices, but you know what I mean. Okay, let me know your thoughts.